7:05. We're gonna go ahead and get started, y'all. Let's see. All right, and if this agenda changes, it's okay. I just, you know, I don't know. I was sleepy. I was sleepy earlier. I had a long day. Oof. Anyway, welcome everybody and people who are just joining. I am Alexis B. Curling, the president of M&A. I always say that wrong when I get live. I don't know why. It seems so weird. Anyway, Malta Neighborhood Alliance. And this is our, I guess now it's a full year or no?
It's been over a year.
It's been over. Wow.
July was a year in 2020.
I know, but I meant like a meeting. So like we had okay, so yeah, that's crazy. Woo, time just moved on. Okay, so anyway, we're going to start on our agenda here. And the first thing we got is the treasury report, which I have nice and handy up here. Thank you, Miss Regina. So Miss Regina Smith is our treasurer for M&A, and she's going to tell us about our little $2.50 in the bank. Go ahead, take it away.
Okay, so as of December the 1st, 2021, we had $519.36. For those that aren't aware, we need to keep a balance of $500 in order to not receive a service charge, monthly service charge of $10. So on January the 18th, we received a loan from Alexis Reed Curling of $95, which was to cover the cost of the State of Maryland articles of cancellation for our old LLC, now that we are incorporated in a nonprofit organization, and that included the processing fee. We also received a donation from the Marlton 10 Homeowners Association of $250 and the Marlton Pool of $100. Withdrawals, as I mentioned earlier, were the articles of cancellation for our old organization name and our processing fee. And of course, we did receive the service fee because at the time we did not have the required balance of $500. So there was a $10 fee at the beginning of February. And then we had the renewal of the PO box fee for the period of March through June for $45, leaving us with a remaining balance in the account as of February 28th, $815.63.
And that did that. Thank you, Ms. Gina.
You're welcome.
Okay, back to my little handy dandy. What did I have up here? I think I was gonna, you know how your thing disappeared? Okay, there we go.
I'm sorry, I was gonna ask, did anyone have any questions about bank transactions?
Sorry. Okay, that's a no.
Not hearing any. Moving on.
Right. I put up here the newsletter and website, only because we just had a newsletter that just came out. If you haven't received a copy, it is absolutely on our website, marlton.org, or if you want to be on our mailing list, please send M&A an email at Marlton Neighborhood Alliance.
It's Marlton Neighborhood Alliance at gmail.com.
I got it on the screen here. And somebody will please put it in the chat just in case.
Lorraine is working on it.
Thank you very much. So if you're interested in having our newsletter sent to you as opposed to doing a click on our website, that's fine. We can send it to you. Just as long as you get the information, that's what's important. Also, we have a website, if you guys are unaware. We have a website and it's marlton.org. I do my very best to update it, and I really, really, really try to keep the latest and greatest information for HOA information for the 7 or 8 we have. Well, I can't remember, 7 or 8 that we have on there, and update the information because names change, addresses change, and websites for people who are, taking payments or what have you. That changes. So I try to keep that updated. That's more updated than the newsletter. So please refer to the website on that because it kind of changed in between. And I got a few changes this time. So even now that information on the newsletter is a little old and we need to get that updated. Any questions about our newsletter or our website? Okay, moving right along. All right, so back to here. So our topic of tonight, we're going to be going into talking about our new townhome proposal that we have on Heathermore for 219 townhomes, and we have you give your own title, Mr. Riviera, Norman Riviera. I think he's the lawyer for the developer, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So he's going to be here to give his little spiel, and you guys can ask questions after that. Take it away.
Thank you, everyone, and appreciate you having me. I just looked at your website. It looks very good. In fact, the site plan that we had
You
sent
want me
you.
to pull that up?
Yeah, the site plan is up on the website, marlton.org. So that really is what we have to discuss tonight. And while you're doing that, my name is Norman Rivera. I've been a longtime real estate zoning land use attorney in Prince George's County. I used to work for Park and Planning in the 80s, Prince George's County, when Glenn Denning was the county executive. Then I went to law school, and then now I'm here, 2022. But I used to work on Marlton when Don Pleasant Excavating bought the whole property, what was not developed already, back in 1986. And just to give you guys a little bit of background before that, the zoning for Marlton, which is called a residential planned community, was first adopted by the county commissioners way back in 1969. Before there was a county council, there was a county commissioner system, which is very similar, but there was less commissioners. And now there's 11. There were 9 county council persons. So Sidney Harrison is your council person. He is now the vice chairman of the Prince George's County Council under the leadership of Calvin Hawkins, the current chair. So while we're there, this year is an election year. I think four current county council people are what they call term limited. So Sydney is not one of those. So out of the 11 minus 4, 7. So there's 4 seats open because of term limits, but then obviously anybody can run for the other 7. I don't think Mr. Harrison has any opposition. There's the plan, Alexis. Thank you. So I think he'll be constant, and he'll be here for another term after this one expires this year in 2022. So he is your legislative leader. And of course, Angela Alsobrooks is the current county executive. She did not run for governor. She's put her hat in the ring to run again for county executive. And I have no doubt that she'll win that election handily. So for your purposes locally, I think it'll be county executive Angela Alsobrooks, as well as Mr. Harrison as vice chairman of the county council. So last time we met, can't remember the date, not a whole lot has changed, except the Prince George's County Council, way back in 2018, decided to rewrite the whole zoning ordinance. So the zoning ordinance in this county started way back in 1949 and has evolved since. But in 2018, the county council, with Park and Planning's assistance, decided to rewrite the whole thing because there's so many archaic things in there, like obsolete zones that don't exist. I mean, they had regulations in there for you to have a pigeon house on your roof, and nobody does it anymore. So they got rid of a lot of those things. They got rid of some zones that were archaic. So the zoning rewrite occurred, and then the county rezoned the whole county culminating in 2021 in December to effectuate the new zones. So what all that means is that the RPC, what you guys are, still remains. So nothing much changed in that respect. But for this property and a couple other properties in Marlton that aren't developed yet, they recommended different zones that are very similar to what they are now. But whoever owns the land has 2 years to make a choice starting April 1st. We're going to stay where we are, which in this case, the majority of the property is local activity center because it used to be called C2, a shopping center. And then the rest of it is zoned R30, which allows townhouses, apartments, and single-family houses. The new zone would call it all basically the same, just a different nomenclature, if you will. But we're going to stay with what we got because that's what we know. And it's unclear how the county is going to evaluate any new proposals. Plus, it's just way too complicated to start all over again. So the proposal we proposed before, which is about 219 houses, townhouses, matches what's all around it. You can see from the little site plan there that everywhere around it is all townhouses, except on the south side, kind of to the left, there's the apartments. We have to wait till April 1st to continue processing our plans because the new code takes effect and it's already March 9th. So we're going to wait till the end of the month, starting April 1st, and then kick everything back into gear. So from a plan perspective, nothing has changed. It's just that we're waiting. We started, earlier last year, and then the county rewrote the zoning ordinance, and then they readopted the whole county just in December. So we're basically waiting for the first quarter of 2022 to get the train back on track and keep moving. The next step would be this plan you see would be reviewed by the district council and the planning board first, then the council, and then your input would be obviously very instrumental in that. And you've communicated to me your concerns about traffic, recreation, et cetera, and we'll address all those things as we go forward. There'll be a planning board hearing, I would guess probably in, let's see, at the earliest, probably late June, early July, could be September. And then once that is approved, hopefully, then we would go to the next step, which is what's called a subdivision plan. In land development, there's two things. There's subdivision where you create these little squares that are called lots. Then there's a detailed site plan that has all the bells and whistles, all the green area, the recreation facilities, the architecture. Is it brick? Is it this? Is it that? All the landscaping, all that is next. And then record plat and then permitting. So at this juncture, I would say we're probably looking at breaking ground, if all goes well, sometime around this time in 2023. It just takes a long time to get through the process. And of course, with COVID, you just can't go to the county building and say, hey, let's do this, let's look at that. It takes double as long to do anything.
Right.
So we have to just wait for that to hopefully resolve itself somehow for the whole world. But meanwhile, we'll just keep plugging along. And then, of course, as soon as I get other plans and more refinements to this, I'll send it to your team so you guys can share it with your citizens and evaluate it from there. And that's kind of like where we are. Obviously, I'll be happy to answer any questions as we move forward. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lorraine. You gotta unmute though. There.
So I just have a couple of things that I'd like to maybe bring to your attention. We talked about this at the last meeting about the lack of parking. You guys said that every townhouse is going to have a garage, so it's not really that big of a problem. However, in this area, parking is very much a problem. In fact, over there on, I guess it's a Woodstock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right here, I'm pointing to it.
Those townhouses don't have enough parking themselves, and they are often parked out on Woodstock because they don't have enough parking. And so where you're talking about putting your exit, there are often cars parked. And so that's going to be a problem. And we were talking also about the street width in that area, and it looks like I believe we had talked about it was going to be no street parking available. And that was one of the other issues that I had. If you were to come down Grand Haven, which is if you go up Woodstock, it turns into Grand Haven. If you come all the way down Grand Haven, there's a little crescent turnaround called Thornberry. Thornberry is a road that is not
It's not on here.
It's not supposed to have street parking. It's very small. And yet all of the houses there, even though they have garages, wind up parking on the street to the point where it's essentially a one-way road because you cannot go. If you have somebody coming at you, there's not enough room to get past. So my biggest problem with all of this is I think you guys need to really reconsider adding in street parking and adding in extra parking, because there's already not enough parking in this area.
There's already.
That point is well taken, Lorraine. I've dealt with townhouses in the whole county, and that's common. I mean, as you well know, some people don't use the garage. They put their whatever they're in there, storage stuff.
Exactly. And that's
So
how it
like-
is in this neighborhood. Almost nobody uses their garage for their cars. And the people that do, I mean, and a lot of houses out here, even the townhouses, especially with the economic downturn, and we see this coming again, it's going to happen again. We're going to have families having to move in with each other, and you're going to have way too many people living in these houses. But you're going to wind up with each house having like maybe 3, even 4 cars in some cases. And if that's the case, and they have to have that garage used as storage because they, you know, the family members all moved in and they don't have enough space. So everything's in the garage, and now they only got room for like 1 car in front of it, and maybe they got another parking space, and then they're in the visitor spot. Well, then what happens when the neighbor has a party? There's no room for parking. So that's why I would really strongly recommend that you guys reconsider not allowing street parking, that you guys reconsider that. Because like I said, if you just drive around this area, you will see there's not enough parking.
I'm very familiar with that. We just finished a project in Glendale off 193 in Greenbelt. And the good news is there's 2 ways to deal with it, or at least 2. From a private standpoint, we will create a homeowners association. So I don't know if we could say you got to use your garage, because, you know, it's hard to enforce, but we could say you're supposed to have a garage, so don't park, you know, off site, because you're affecting the neighbors. And we don't want to do that. I know Councilman Harrison would be very cognizant of that, as well as the planning board. So from a private standpoint with our HOA, we can build in rules and regulations, but enforcement is sort of like self-enforcement. Your neighbor has to say, hey, Joe, quit parking over there, get all that crap out of your garage, you know, whatever that is. So we'll do with that on that standpoint. We also, in the Glendale job, worked with what the county has an organization called the Revenue Authority, which a subset of that is the Parking Authority. So with the Glendale job, we created street parking and on-street parking and internal parking regulations where you had to have a sticker, and things were regulated to the extent that you had to, there was visitor parking set aside to address that issue. And there was also mandatory parking for the residents to make sure that, you know, that was taken care of. And it was, they actually go out there, the Revenue Authority with DPI and the Prince George's County Police can go out and ticket and tow people. And then the HOA itself will have a towing company, because people will do stuff anyway. And there'll be posted signs saying you can't park here more than 24 hours on a public road. And on a private road, it's whatever we decide to make the rules to be. I probably have to look at what the HOAs have around you to see what they do, if anything. My guess is they don't do a whole lot, but we can take care of it.
May I say something? I don't think we should make it more difficult for people to park
Yes.
where they live. They live there. I don't think that we should have regulations that make it more difficult for them to park, or difficult for people even coming to visit them for a couple of hours.
Thank you.
No, I understand that. We have guest parking, which is, you know, run by the HOA, and resident parking at other projects. We're not trying to make it more restrictive, but we're trying to make sure you park where you live and don't park in somebody else's neighborhood.
Nobody's gonna do that. Nobody's gonna park in someone else's neighborhood and then go home. They're not gonna do that.
Can I say something?
I think that's sort of an artificial problem. There's a real problem in that. I mean, I live in Stonegate, as does Maureen, and the parking issues are real.
Right.
And people are not gonna park here and then go, you know, walk 15 minutes to where they live. People don't do that.
And you shouldn't create a neighborhood where that's so restricted. That's just crazy.
I'm just relating a project we had, and that's what they wanted.
Mm.
It's up to you guys.
Do you have me muted?
Not yet. You're still on, Miss Maureen.
Well, I agree with Lorraine and Maureen that parking should be reasonable and not that restrictive on the people who live there. Because people are not gonna, the people who are parking are the people who belong in the neighborhood, in the houses for one reason or another. No one's gonna park their car and walk 15 minutes to go home.
Yeah, there's that, but I was dealing with one of the issues that somebody said about if you have people with too many cars, that means they live there, and why should they have 8 parking spots for a townhouse?
Not. I
Yeah.
mean, in Stonegate, basically, when we moved in here, and I moved in the beginning, you had 2 parking spaces per residence, and some of them do not have the 2, and that's reasonable. And then to be able to park on the street because the kids grow up or whatever, and then the kids have a car, and that the kid's car is on the college kid who comes home, college kid's car is parked on the street. So again, the people who are there, they're not going to have, for the most part, no one's going to have 8 cars. And there should be some, some degree of reasonableness. But to make it very hard for people to even park on the street, I think that's too much. Or to require a sticker or something for people to park on the street, it seems too much for a neighborhood like ours.
That's not right.
Okay, so it sounds like the issue is on Woodstock, correct?
Yes.
And that's a public street. So I don't know how you can regulate parking tags or anything with a public street. So I think the issue, Mr. Rivera, is that you're looking at removing some of the existing parking that is there on a public street. And Mr. Anthony Washington has his hand up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that's what they did in that case.
Go ahead,
it's
Mr.
up to the group.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The parking situation, I have a friend who was part of a homeowners association over near FedEx Field. And he got voted out. Some new folks, they wanted new blood in. They got some new folks in. Sometimes careful what you ask for. Because the young lady that took over had an agreement with a towing company.
Hmm.
They started getting hang tags, the extra towing. Folks were towing because the tag fell off and landed on the floor. It got excessive. It got a little out of control. So if that is the other option, hopefully everybody's truly vetted in that process, because he battled that thing even once he got out of the association, just as a regular citizen in the neighborhood. He battled that situation for years, because what he found was there was no regulatory authority, so to speak, when it came to homeowners associations, is what he found. When he started digging into it and going to court, trying to figure out who do I talk to get these folks to act right, he started to find there really wasn't anybody that was kind of overseeing all of the homeowners associations within the county. So it got real difficult. So I'm just saying, if that's an option, be careful with that option.
Right.
Yeah, we won't propose anything without everybody on your side meeting and coming up with a proposed solution that we all go forward with. It won't be unilateral.
So in changing the subject just a tad bit, same area, but what about an erosion study? Have the developers conducted an erosion study? Because once you start digging up in that land, it's going to affect all of the houses in the area.
Yes, we have to do, that's a great question. We have to do soils borings, which means you dig holes in the ground to see what the soils are. So if you look at a soils map of the county, there's various different types of soils. Sometimes there's clay, sometimes it's sandy, sometimes it's silty, loamy. So every type of soil our geotech engineers have to analyze, and we develop a grading plan. And as part of that, that's just the raw information. Then our civil engineers have to do what's called a stormwater management concept plan, which deals with water, because water and erosion kind of go hand in hand. And then you have steep slopes, you have soils, you have water, all those things combine to possibly create an issue. The county code and state laws say that we cannot create any upstream or downstream impacts for what we do. It has to be all internalized. So, for example, some sites are low on dirt. They're light. So we have to import dirt to make it more flat, if you will, or take off dirt to make the slopes less steep. So we will do all that in a nutshell to prove to the county, and I'll share that with you guys, how it won't affect anything offsite, upstream, downstream, adjacent, or anywhere. We can't have dirt on the roads. We can't have dirt flowing down the streams. Dirt can't go into the stormwater management or the sewage or the storm drain pipes, because that's all an impact that we're not allowed to do. They won't give us a permit.
So what's your ETA on getting that study done, that analysis done?
We're working on it now. We've got our geotechs and civil engineers studying it now, and then when we get ready to submit it, I'll send the results over to you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another area of consideration is that while you're adding more townhouses into the community, is there something that the developers will be willing to offer to the community, such as a community center, instead of building, say, so many townhomes?
Well, we have by law to provide for recreation facilities for the residents that we create, and we're happy to work with the community as to, what the needs are. A community center, a structure, if you're talking about a structure, is very expensive to maintain. So either they're run by the Park and Planning Commission,
Right.
or they're run by the private entities. And if it's going to be open to the general public as to Marlton, then, everybody would have to share into that. Like, you have open space maintenance fees, like for the gazebo out front on 301. So there'd be a operating cost that everybody has to contribute to. And then there's going to be a maintenance cost. I mean, that's the maintenance cost, and then a capital cost to build it if it's not just for this site, but it's for the general area. And at that point, sometimes Park and Planning steps in and says, we could just do something in general if there's a need.
Mm.
Well, we do have the Marlton Pool, and that is a fee-based option.
Mhm.
So that's something to consider as well if we're looking at defraying costs, but something that the entire community could benefit from would be helpful.
That's a good idea. We could, certainly work with the management, if you will, of the pool, and figure out what's reasonable for everybody.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I came in late on this session. Is Mr. Rivera representing the county or the builder?
The builder.
Yes,
And
the
what
developer,
about
then the
schools?
builder.
How will this community impact the schools? There's talk of closing Mattapani, which is going to leave only Marlton. Frederick Douglass is already overcrowded, and so is James Madison.
Well, that's a good question, ma'am. So way back in like 2012, the county, when you go through the subdivision process, has what's called an adequate public facilities test, which is for schools, public safety, traffic, what have you, any public issue. So in the old days, there was an analysis where the school system gave us a map, not us, but Park and Planning and the county, a map that said, here's the state rated capacity for elementary, middle, and high school. And if you were above a certain percentage, then you either had to pay a fee to help get that school up to speed, or you couldn't build, or you had to wait till there was capacity. Then subsequent to that, because that was too, I guess, cumbersome for the county to manipulate and to operate, they went to a fee-based system for both public safety, which is fire, police, plus schools. So right now, and this has been here for years, we pay outside the Beltway upwards of $16,000 per unit prior to the issuance of a building permit for every one of these, say 219 units times, say 17 grand. That is paid, goes in the county's coffers so they can budget it, so they can add seats and do stuff for schools. Same thing for police and fire, but it's about $7,000 outside the Beltway. There's a discount if you're inside the Beltway, but we're obviously not. So the way that the program is now by law is we have to pay that fee, and then the county allocates it to where everybody decides where it should be.
Okay, we have someone, their hand raised, Brian Baker.
Thank you. I'm Brian Baker. I am the president for Marlton 100. And the question I have is in regard to the two-way traffic in which you have from Woodstock, or it's on Heathermore, but from Woodstock, and I'm looking at your plans, from Woodstock up through in front of the, I guess in the back of the complex. Come back down to Woodstock,
Right.
down to Heathermore, right, on that corner. So
Okay.
along the road is a two-way road, but as we go from up to 301, that's 4 lanes.
Right.
Is there gonna be any development of expansion of that road to make that instead of two-way, 4-way?
You mean 4 lanes or 2 lanes?
Yeah, 4 lanes, yeah.
Not on Woodstock, sir. Heathermore is 120-foot wide, 4-lane arterial, and it's sized to take all the traffic from Marlton, now as you see it, where the tracks are, the Pepco, all the way to 301. The side roads are what they call primary residential streets. They're 2-way, and they're 55-foot right-of-ways. Excuse me, with like what is it, 30 feet of paving, which is designed to handle 2-way traffic. So we will have to do a traffic study, which we've already started.
Okay.
To prove to the county that 219 units create X amount of trips. And the way they do traffic studies, sir, is that there's a trip generation factor. A townhouse creates X number of cars in what they call the AM peak hour and the PM peak hour, which is rush hour, AM and PM. So from like 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and like 4:30 to 7 p.m., then the traffic counts are made, and they test the intersections as well as the capacity to hold traffic. It's not just where the T intersection is, the cross, it's how wide a road is and how many cars go up and down it. They look at both of those things, and they'll tell us, well, if there's, if you need to do something, you got to do something. So it could be adding in a lane, it could be, doing whatever they tell us to do. And then that'll be part of the public record. We'll share that with you guys too.
Okay, great. And I got a follow-up question in regards to the school potential school closing. I did hear about potential Marlton Elementary, how that may have an impact on, in terms of with the builder, in regard to, okay, you're building all these homes and you don't have potentially closing of Marlton Elementary, how that may have an effect. So that's just a comment in regards to piggyback off of what the young lady presented earlier about Frederick Douglass and the middle school.
That's a good point, Mr. Sir, because the county Prince George's County Public School System in conjunction with the state, they created what's called a P3 program. So it's a joint public-private partnership where the county, which is the school system and the county, said, okay, we have all these schools. Some of them are obsolete and underutilized. Some are overcrowded. So maybe we should close these and put the resources where it's crowded and figure it all out. And they're already building new schools. It's $1 billion effort. I don't know. I could look it up what it is for this area, but if they're already said that, that means they're saying that there's not enough demand to have, both schools there. But we'll have to see. And I could look that up for you.
Okay. We got another question from Anthony Washington. I want to make sure you get all in.
Excuse me.
Anthony, do you still had a
No.
question, or your hands? were
No,
still-
ma'am, I'm sorry. I just need to bring my hand down. I apologize.
Okay, no worries. Anybody else have a question?
I do, other than those new schools are nowhere near us.
Yeah, that's a function of the county and the state and where they want to put the money and what they perceive as the need is. So what I tell people like yourselves is, if you feel a need, it's like if you see something, you got to say something.
Right.
That's what the democratic process is. So if you don't say anything, they don't think there's a problem. I'm only one person. I can say, hey, they start saying this, but
Right.
you're the taxpayers. You're the ones with the kids there. You're a lot more effective, but I can give you the ammo and who to call, what to do, an email and all that stuff. But it has to be sort of a cohesive effort. If Marlton 100 and your group and the PTAs, if they all band together, they got to listen to you. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Can you give us that overall summary again that you mentioned at the beginning? So some people joined us late about where we are with the status of the development.
Sure. So the zoning started in Marlton way back in 1969, and then it has evolved to where in 2004, I think, the Subregion 6 master plan that was approved by the County Council and Park and Planning altered some of the zoning. And in this case, this property used to be what's called C2, which is the old school shopping center zone. And now it's called LAC, Local Activity Center, which allows for a variety of retail, commercial office, and residential. What we have proposed is to propose a revision of that plan to basically go all residential. We don't see the need for a small shopping center there. There's no market for it, and countywide, the county's very reticent to have these little shopping centers in the middle of neighborhoods that don't survive, because then it becomes an eyesore. You already have Marlton Plaza, you got, all that stuff on 301. It's much more visible, easy to access. You hit it on the way home. So that's more fruitful from a modern day standpoint. So we just wanted to convert it all to townhouses, which is kind of matches with everything around it. So this proposal will go through a zoning process with Park and Planning, the district council, which hopefully will be ending this year. And then we do a preliminary plan, which divides it into lots, which is about 219 as we see it today, followed by a detailed site plan with architecture, landscaping, all the pretty picture stuff, if you will. Then permitting, which would hopefully be next spring or summer of 23.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else have any last questions before Mr. Riviera, before we let him go?
Do we know who the
Okay.
builder is?
Oh, there we go. One more question. We want to know who the builder is.
We don't have a builder yet, so I represent the developer. So in the development building biz, So we're like at the wholesale end. So developers buy the land, come up with the concept. And once we get it approved for X number of units, somewhere in that process, we pick a builder. There may be two for this site because there's a lot of units, and we want to have what we call segmenting of the market. So they can't all look the same. And you want to have this style, like some people like, NV Homes, or some people like Caruso Homes, whatever. They all have to like come to us and say, we'd like to build here. And then we have to file a site plan with their architecture that, again, you guys will see before it goes anywhere. But we'll certainly provide that, because usually the neighborhood is where all the people come to buy the new stuff. So you're the first place we would check with.
Has the developer given any thought to creating a senior development to make it a more diversified community?
We've talked about it. All I can say is that I'll run it up to the folks and see what they think. The zoning would permit it. So there's like 2 or 3 types of seniors. There's active adult, which is 55 and over. And then there's assisted living, which is near the end. You're basically in a nursing home. And then there's something in between. There's a project called Victoria Falls up in Laurel. And then the Evangel Temple in Central Avenue has one of those active adult communities. So I'll ask and see what they think the market is.
Looks like Lorraine has her hand up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. You're muted. Okay. go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, okay. Like I said, obviously, if you look at the chat right now, you will see most people in this area do not want this. We really don't want this. This is way too many homes. This is way too many people coming into this area. I mean, yeah, we have a couple of food stores nearby, but I mean, there's not a lot, and people that live here all wind up leaving here to go to work. And you're talking about putting 219 townhomes in there. I would hate to be stuck in any of those townhomes on either side of this development in the morning trying to come out and go to work, because you have 219 homes feeding either onto Woodstock or Marlton Center Drive, both of which are already packed with people. And that those intersections where they try to turn left onto Heathermore or turn right onto Heathermore, either way, it can get crazy. Okay. And so besides the parking, it's too much, man. I really, the parking is, okay, I understand that, and that's where I'm coming from this at. I really don't want this development here either, because I think it's too many new homes to the area, but I do understand the developer, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure this is owned by a company called Lake Marlton. I understand they have to do something with their properties because they own a lot of property in the area, and this is one of the few properties they can actually build on, and they need to do something to make money because that's what they do. But they really need to reconsider and maybe reduce the number of homes and increase the street width so that there's street parking, increase parking availability, because like we have said, this is ridiculous. The idea of you're going to fix this by creating an HOA and putting stickers on cars, that's not going to work. There's really very little oversight in HOAs in this area, and it's very hard to get parking enforcement out here. We've had problems in the wider neighborhood with trying to get parking enforcement out here, so good luck with that. And on top of that, you're talking about police. We already have a problem with not getting police out here often enough. So that's going to be a problem when you start adding 200 new families into the area. And crime is going to go up because there's going to be more people attracted to come out here because we don't have the police officers that we need in this area. And we've been fighting with the county on that too. And we're just looking at this and going, we really don't want this many new people in the area. And now I understand they're going to do this anyway, which is why I'm really trying to encourage you to at least increase the parking, increase the street size inside that little development, because you're talking about a little alleyway. And I can tell you for a fact, there's going to be people that are going to wind up parking over on Woodstock and over on Marlton Center because there's not enough parking inside the development. I know this because it happens all the time. My sister lived in a development up in Columbia, very similar to this, with very small streets and very little parking. Every home had a garage that they were supposed to use for parking. Nobody did. Every home had a driveway that fit maybe one, maybe two cars if you squeezed it. And there was no street parking. There was just a couple of visitor spots sprinkled throughout the development. And the result was it was next to impossible for my sister to have any friends over. It was impossible for her to have any fun. People in this area like to throw their parties, especially like graduation and 4th of July and all that stuff. There's not going to be parking for anybody to come over. You're not going to be able to have your family over because there's not going to be parking. And you're going to wind up with somebody in that area is going to throw a party, and they're going to wind up with people parking all the way down Woodstock trying to get to the party because there's no parking in there. So this is not, I mean, I'm telling you, the neighborhood don't want it, but I'm trying to give you a way to make it a little more palatable to the neighborhood at least, because we really don't want this.
So piggybacking off of that, Lorraine, would they consider a reduced number of homes instead of the 200 plus?
For real.
Yes.
That's for Mr. Riviera to take back. You know, the
Yeah.
question is, can we look at a reduction in the number of homes we're talking about bringing to the community?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we got like 8 minutes left to finish this up. And I wanted to, well, I think everybody had something to say to Mr. Riviera has already spoken, right? Like shut anybody out. Okay, great. Moving on because I got 8 minutes. I wanted to bring up the block party that we have coming up. We have a block party coming up, and it will be on, I'm gonna get this wrong, I know I am. June.
It's going to be fabulous on June 25th.
Thank you. I'm gonna say June 25th, between 3 and 6. And before that, there's going to be a ribbon cutting for the new splash pad that's going to be added to the pool. And I see that we have Mr. Anthony Jones on here. Did you want to speak? I see your hand raised. Sorry. Yes, go ahead. You have to unmute. You're talking and we can't hear you. Unmute.
You're having a good conversation with mute.
I know, right?
Thank
Unmute.
you all. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for
Rivera.
coming.
All right.
Thank
take
you.
care.
You still talking to Ken? Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Okay,
Okay.
just want to cordially invite everyone to come over to the Marlton Pool. We look forward to wonderful the community, and there will be plenty to do. If there's any questions regarding the water WSSC contractor who's been doing work in our community, please let us know. I in particular have been kind of honchoing the contractor to make sure he does the right thing. There are several issues he's going to address for us at the pool, as well as doing some work that is very neat in terms of putting some other fencing, et cetera. If you have any questions or
Mr.
concerns,
Anthony,
and
you're breaking up really, really bad.
you know.
I can barely hear you. Keep talking. Mr. Anthony, did he disappear? I think
Yeah,
he
it looks
did.
like he disappeared, but I think the gist of what he was saying, that if there's any problems with the WSSC
There you go. He's back.
construction, to
Mhm.
reach out to him. And is he back? If he's back,
Yeah, he's back.
I'm
but
like,
he's
if
not-
we can get
he's
them to
frozen.
pave all of North Marlton and all of Old Colony Drive, that would be great.
Yeah. Are you there, Mr. Anthony?
Well,
Okay.
hopefully, to all that's on the call.
Understand what was being said.
Yeah, because you're breaking out really bad on the
I
cell phone.
understand. Okay, every time I try to say something, it appears someone else is talking. Anyway, we look forward to the splash party, a block party with the Alliance. And if you have any issues regarding the contractor during the water's WSSC work in our streets, please let me know, and we'll try to get things corrected and move forward to ensure that we have a wonderful event.
Awesome.
Thank
And I
you.
think
Mr. Anthony.
we're going to try to have that information on the website. Alexis, is that correct?
For the block party, absolutely. The block party and the pool, absolutely, both things.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, we're doing planning. We're doing the planning meeting. So if you're interested in being a part of our planning or being volunteering for our block party, please go to our website and sign up. There's a neat little thing that I put in there for volunteers, and so we can get your address or email addresses so that I can send you out the next meeting that we're gonna have on our website, marlton.org. Go back to that page so we can see it. And so the last thing I had was, well, we didn't have anything else. Anybody have any questions about anything that we discussed this evening? You got like 3 minutes. Anybody? Okay, then we'll call it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. Our next meeting that we're going to have is going to be on, help me, Regina. It's June. Oh, we got to come up with a new date because we can't have it on a Wednesday. That's right. Got to move it a week. Okay, so forthcoming, to be determined at this moment, but it will be in June. So I will update everybody once we figure out what date it's going to be, because we're stepping on another HOA meeting, having it tonight, and they requested that we move it, and we will. So as soon as I come up with a new date, I'll send out emails and let everybody know what's going on the